You can achieve your way into so many different types of external validation and success and achievement. You can work your way, but you cannot work your way and you cannot think your way into human connection. Welcome to the Conscious Matchmaker. I'm your host, Sophy Singer, founder of Sophy Love, alongside Elizabeth Foster, lead executive matchmaker and conscious date coach. We'll explore conscious dating, which extends beyond the realm of romantic relationships. We'll help you break down the subconscious barriers that have held you back from experiencing the love and connection you truly deserve. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Conscious Matchmaker. I am Sophy Singer, owner and chief matchmaker at Sophy Love. And today I have a very special guest, one of my favorite people in the entire world, Dr. Justin Wilford. Welcome, Justin.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Sophy. This is like a special gift.
I've been on Justin's podcast before, but now this is the special day. I want to tell everyone a little bit about Justin from a technical standpoint. Justin is a level 2 certified internal family systems coach. He holds PhDs in the social and health sciences. He designs and facilitates emotional health programs as well, in addition to coaching professionals, leaders, singles, parents, in gaining greater self-clarity and authentic expression through IFS.
So happy to be here. Yes. We have worked together for a long time, and this feels like a really fun and really needed next step in the work that we're bringing into the world.
Yeah, I agree. So I'll just share a quick background on how Justin and I connected. So I met Justin through the nonprofit that I'll just say we connected because both of our sons have brain tumors.
Yes, indeed.
And so that is how we connected. And so Justin and his wife, Audra, co-founded a nonprofit called Max Love Project that works with and supports pediatric cancer and rare disease families through integrative programs, mental and emotional health, culinary medicine, social support. And Max Love Project has been instrumental in my son's brain cancer journey and instrumental in my own personal emotional healing and personal development journey, and just changed basically everything in my life, actually. So I came to Justin seeing that he was started coaching and offering emotional health coaching, and I was really struggling. And he said, well, you're a Max Love family, so you actually qualify to get some of this coaching, for free. And I was like, oh my gosh, I started sobbing right when I saw that message. I was in a really bad place. And I thought I needed to come in and figure out, how am I going to live this way with having a son that has a brain tumor? It's forever, right? And then when we started to work together, I immediately realized that this was about way more than my son's brain tumor.
Yeah.
And that was evident right off the bat. And so since then, it's been the most profound, beautiful, transformative work and journey of my life. I don't know, Justin, at that point, I started being like, God, everyone needs to do this work.
Wow. Well, yeah. And thinking back to those early days when we started working together, just one-on-one and coaching, and now looking back, and it's like, oh, attachment wounds were important even just dealing with childhood cancer stuff, the medical crises. And so we were diving into attachment wounds even back then. It wasn't for dating, it wasn't, but it just goes, I mean, it impresses for me how important it is that we do work around our attachment wounds, and it affects every aspect of our life.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd been matchmaking and date coaching for so many years prior to this. And what I realized as I started to understand myself in terms of my parts, my true self, all of my exiled, wounded parts throughout that had, taken on all these roles and burdens through all the things I'd been through. And I'd been through a lot. I realized that this was the work, and this was what I actually needed back when I was dating and single. And so that's why I very quickly after you and I started working together was like, Justin, I want you to start working with my clients. Like this is going to be the game changer. This is what's going to actually change the trajectory of their life. It's not just the meeting of the person. There is no person out there that is going to complete them. And I realized that as I was realizing it for myself, right? So I'm like, okay. And so now my whole business and everything we do has really transformed and evolved along with me. And to me, this work, and I tell people this all the time, this work, this inner journey, this turning inward is just as important as the matches and the matchmaking part of our process.
Yes.
And the dating itself is actually the perfect mirror to shine back to us where the work is, right? Like what's been blocking us this whole time.
Totally. And so what came through in those early days working with all of your clients, and then still to this day, because I work with so many, is that like we all kind of enter into this journey looking for the one, the one who's going to complete us. And the sooner we can start to see, like what you just said, like that one isn't out there, and we go through this series of this kind of these different phases as we look for the one. And so we see someone, we're like, oh, okay, I think this is the one. This is the one that's going to make all of this feel better, is going to complete me, is like, oh, this is the answer. And so we go in, and then eventually, I mean, this is for everybody, it doesn't matter who you are, you find out, oh my God, they're not going to be the one, or they're not the one. And so then we go through these different projects. And so we might go, like the first project might be, oh, if I can change them, like if I can just fix them, if I can heal them, then they can be the one. Then they could be the one that was going to fill all of this. And so then we go through that. And of course, everybody knows that doesn't work. Like you can't, and so then it's like, okay, well, maybe I can change me. Maybe I can fix myself so that then I can fit into their world. Maybe I can like the same things that they like. Maybe I can develop the same hobbies, and, and maybe I can fit into their world so they can be the one. And of course that doesn't work. And so then the next phase in the journey is, oh, they're not the one, but the one is out there. So, and so Sophia, I think you probably, many of your clients have been through those two phases, and so have come to you and are like, okay, Sophie, you need to find the one, because the one's out there,
Right. I'm really glad you brought that up. And this is all reminding me of reading You Are the One You've Been Waiting For, the book about IFS by Dick Schwartz, and IFS and how it plays into relationships. And I think people go through this. There's different versions of this. There's 6-month versions of this. There's marriage, many years long versions of this. I mean, I'm working on this stuff right now in
Oh,
my own
I,
relationship with
if
Michael.
you are in a long-term relationship, you are working on it. I don't know anybody like I've been
Yeah.
married 20. Well, my wife is going to be upset. I always forget. We're
How
23,
many
24
years?
years. Yeah. And yes, absolutely. Like this is like a long-term, lifelong thing. Yeah.
Right. But what I'd like to point out is the way I see this mapping onto dating today and the people that I talk to on a regular basis is I see a lot of this happening over and over and over again with
Yes.
okay, so I'm online, I'm swiping, I'm finding, going on a date, then someone clicks, right? And I hear this all the time. I go through a lot of people tell me I go through a lot of, you know, 3 month, 2 to 4 month relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sort of fizzle out. This is
And
like
that's just enough time to go through those two phases. Can I fix
exactly.
you or can I change? Yeah.
Yes. It's like they show up and there's excitement and chemistry and hope that, oh, this is going to complete. This is the missing piece of the
Yes,
puzzle.
yes,
Okay, okay.
yes, yes.
And then like all of that stuff dies down within like 6-ish weeks. And then there's two humans with their shit. Like, here's our baggage. Okay. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, let me, like you said, let me see if they can meld into the person I kind of thought they were and want them to be. Nope. Okay. And then there's trying to turn yourself, like contort yourself into some version
Right.
of what they would want again. And no, and then there's well, they're not the one. So I have this dating app on my phone. And instead of having to try and see if I can actually make this work and what can I learn from this, right? I can just hop on my dating app, start swiping and shopping and go on 20 more dates and see if someone else is the one. Then people come to me and they're like, my person's not on the apps, but
That's right.
you have access to them,
Yeah,
Sophie.
yeah. But then there's, unfortunately, there then is the fourth turn. So yeah, we've described the first three: change the other person, change myself. Okay, they're not right, and can keep, and then look for the one out there. And then the fourth phase is, oh wait, no one's out there for me. I'm going to be alone, and I'm broken. And
Oh,
so that's the fourth stage. But they're all wrong.
they're all wrong.
They're
Yes.
all wrong.
Yeah. And
You
then
are not broken. You are not
and
broken.
I've noticed that some people come to me with the like, I want to understand what's wrong with me. Am I like when I get into like deeper conversations with potential clients and they're like, I don't understand. Like it's working for everyone else. Like what's wrong? Like why do the people I like not like me back? And why do the ones, the ones that I'm never interested are always interested in, what's wrong with me? Why am I not able to attract the people? And then there's people who truly are like feeling like they're not enough for
Yeah.
the type of person they
Yeah.
think they should be with.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a big one. And then I also get people coming to me and asking about services and how does this work? And then they say, I also realize like it might just not be in the cards for me.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just, maybe finding a life partner. And I'm like, okay, so that's a part that doesn't care.
A part of
And it's
you. Yep. Mm-hmm.
very protective. It's so much easier not to care about this. And I think that these conversations lead to the same. I've said this, I think I say this phrase, I don't know, 2 to 3 times a week, if not more often. People are like, my career is so great. I have these amazing group of friends. Da, da, da. I just don't, this part, just this like whole romantic love, partnership, merit. That's the one part I just can't quite. And I'm like, yeah, because you can achieve your way into academic success and accomplishments, financial success, jobs, friends, even, you cannot achieve your way into human connection.
Oh.
Cannot.
Sophie, can you say it again?
Okay.
That's so good.
You can't. You just can't. You can achieve your way into so many different types of external validation and success and achievement. You can work your way, but you cannot work your way and you cannot think your way into human connection. You have to move from your head into your body, into your heart, into your parts, into yourself.
Yes.
And that's where it happens. And so I always tell people, I'm like, that's what's going to happen if you decide to work with me.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not the transactional matchmaker. Okay. So Justin, I want to give an overview. So we have a course coming up. I'm so excited about it. It's called Becoming the One, Healing Attachment Wounds Using IFS. The aim of this course is to help people heal attachment wounds from childhood so that they can enter into adult romantic relationships, not needing someone to complete them or fill deep emotional needs. Rather, they can be ready to partner with an equal, face, a shared horizon of life together, not just find someone to grow old with, but someone to grow with forever. A fellow, I like to call it like a fellow traveler, right? That you're traveling side by
Locked
side.
arm in arm. Yep.
Locked arm in arm. We're all just walking each other and ourselves home,
That's right.
So, Justin, my question to you is, can you explain how Becoming the One, how this course, because you designed it and I'm so excited about it, how does it differ from kind of the traditional attachment style workshops that are out there? Because there's a ton out there. Attachment style is a big buzzword in social media.
Well, I guess I first want to start for anyone who isn't familiar with attachment theory. Like, I know the book Attached, that was huge. And so there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh God, I know all about this. But I do want to just give a really quick primer.
Good idea.
So why we should even care about attachment theory.
Yeah.
And the reason why is that it points to something really fundamental. And it's that our childhood experiences with our parents really matter. And so what attachment theory points out is that the way we have connected with our most intimate caregivers, our mom and dad, has left imprints upon us that travel with us through our life, right? And so that's the basics of attachment theory. There's a lot, we can talk about attachment styles, the avoidant attachment styles and anxious attachment styles and, and
secure
and a secure attachment. But the basic idea is like what happened to us in childhood matters for the rest of our lives, for our relationships, and not just for our intimate relationships, our romantic ones, but everything. I mean, it's how we react to our bosses and our colleagues and our
everything.
Friends. I mean, yes, everything. So so attachment theory, right on, thumbs up, cool, A+. But from the perspective of internal family systems, it doesn't go far enough. And so the first thing that I want to point out from an IFS perspective is that attachment theory doesn't have a very good explanation of who we actually are as humans, as selves, right? And so the idea is that, okay, so we were maybe wounded in childhood because of erratic parenting, maybe. And, so from an attachment science perspective, this could be a parent who is emotionally neglectful and just maybe mom is there, but she's not, emotionally attuned, or maybe mom is suffocating and is like always there. And it can be all sorts of different things. But basically the idea is that whatever happened in childhood, it happened to us, and I'm using air quotes now, like me or Justin, and then it's the same Justin now who's bringing that into his marriage or his workplace and da, da, da. So IFS points out that no, it's not the same Justin. Actually, we have parts. And so internal family systems says we're not individuals, we're actually individuals, that the natural state of the human mind is multiple, that we have these inner parts. And so if you've never heard of this idea, the easiest way to think about it is, there's a part of you that might want X and there's a part of you that might want Y. Like everybody knows that. Yeah, a part of me wants this and a part of me wants that. Well, in IFS, we take that really seriously. Like those parts actually exist. They're not just metaphors or figments of your imagination. And so in IFS, it gives us a very sophisticated map to go inside and to start to understand how these parts work. And so as we bring IFS into looking at attachment theory and attachment science, what we begin to see is that, oh, it's actually young parts of us that experience those attachment wounds. And these attachment wounds can be, there are many of them. It's not just once or twice, right? It can be like, okay, you know, when I was a baby, I was left to cry it out in the crib. And then when I was 3, you know, we moved, and my parents both had jobs and were too, and I didn't, you know, didn't, or, you know, when I was 7, my parents got divorced, which that's just an example. My parents are still together, so if my parents are listening to this, but you know, so these are examples that these attachment wounds can occur at various ages, at various times, and various parts of us carry these different wounds. And so it's not just one part with these wounds, it's many. And we have these other parts that are mature or relatively mature and are in charge of, you know, being hyper intellectual or hyper vigilant or hypercritical or controlling. And these parts aren't the ones that experienced those wounds back then. And so IFS allows us to get really sophisticated to see, all right, it's not just Justin that experienced the wounds, but it's parts. And so then what we can do is we can use IFS practices to begin to access these parts, because the young parts carrying the wounds are not really available. They have these needs that were not met. And so these manager parts, the ones that are critical and controlling and on the lookout, and the ones that are really driving the bus, they're trying to meet the needs of these young parts carrying the wounds. Like, that pain is there, the managers know it, and they're out there trying to get it fixed. And so what we were talking about before of looking for the one, like the one who's going to complete us, those are manager parts that are like, oh, we've got these young kids in here that are hurt, that didn't get the love they needed, or didn't get the autonomy they needed, or whatever the case is. And so now we're looking for a partner who's going to give us this. And ultimately, as we said, that's a lost cause. Like, that's never going to happen. There's never going to be a person who is going to come into your life and is going to heal those kids. What they needed, that was back then in childhood. In internal family systems, has this beautiful map, this beautiful model that says we're not just made of parts. Like, yes, we have all these parts, but behind these parts, there is what we call the capital S self, or we can call it the true self. You can call it spirit, source, essence, whatever you want to call it. And it is this like core part of us that is completely whole. And in IFS, we have these 8 C words for the core self: compassion, calmness, curiosity, confidence, courage, clarity, creativity, and connectedness. I think that's
them.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so it's there. The analogy we use is it's like the sun behind the clouds, and the clouds are our manager parts that are protecting us, these wounded young parts, and all of these parts inside that are big, extreme, caring so much. They're like the clouds covering up the sun. And so as we do these IFS practices of getting to know these parts or these clouds, they eventually begin to relax back, and the sun just shines through. So this core self, full of this calmness, compassion, confidence, courage, and all this wonderful stuff, just shines through. And so then we realize as we do this work, like, oh, I don't need the one. Actually, the one is inside. This true self is the one who's going to go and heal all those young parts. And then when that happens, there's now more self here. There's more me. The real me is here. And now when I go on a date, I don't need to be protective, defensive, and withdrawn. I don't need to evaluate and overanalyze. I don't need to worry. You know, instead, I'm there with that calmness, curiosity, confidence, and connection. And the other person feels that as well. And so there's a clarity. And so we then know, like, oh, is this the right person to go on a second date with, or a third?
Yes.
And we can just follow that interest, follow that curiosity. We don't need to be wrapped so much up in like planning for, you know, the wedding or is this person, do I just need to cut them off? And so we can be more present, and we are looking for the person, as you said, Sophie, that we can just do life with. We don't need them to fix us. We don't need them to be the surrogate mom and dad. We just need a life partner that we can face that shared horizon with.
Yes. And yeah, what comes up for me when I heard towards the end there, what you're talking about with our clients, Justin, the parts that show up when they're on dates that are, first of all, clarity, right? Like, should I go on another date with them? Should I not? Just an inner knowing and developing a sense of trust within yourself in these romantic situations, not having to ask like 20 friends and your therapist,
oh my gosh, a sense of
what to do
trust.
next.
Yes,
Like a
yes.
trust, because your parts are they're connected to your true self, right? So you're aware, like the part that's starting to, and also the parts that evaluate on dates, that evaluate for goodness of fit as life partner. I mean, those are basically the biggest, I would say, protector parts that come up in dating, because
Huge.
those are the protectors that are like, okay, we need to make sure that this pain that's down deep below, this hole, this wound gets filled. And there is a person that's going to fill it. And I need to evaluate whoever's sitting across from me to find out if they're a good fit to fill that hole. And people like
Totally.
to say, oh, it's the missing piece of the puzzle. I used to say that shit all the time. That's just the only missing piece. I have all these amazing friends. I love my job. No, I filled it. I mean, I thought I filled it. I got married. I met Michael. He's amazing. We had kids. I still felt horrible after all of that.
And it's not Michael's fault. It's not.
It's not Michael's fault at all. Nothing. No, it has nothing to do with him. It's 100% all in me. And the thing is, that's the problem. And it blocks connection on the dates. It's like, if you're sitting
Totally.
there, evaluating and knowing or thinking that you're being evaluated also, it just really, it blocks connection. You can't connect with a person if you're sitting there interviewing them for some sort of like very serious role, for the role of basically caregiver and redeemer. Right?
Oh my gosh.
You don't even realize, they don't realize that they're interviewing them for that, but that's what they're doing.
Right. And the other person's doing the same thing. So it's just protector parts, interviewing protector parts. And it's in IFS, we have a very clinical term for this. It's called parts-a-palooza.
Parts-a-palooza. It's just a partay. Okay. So the next thing, so in the course title, we talk about healing attachment wounds. And to me, that sort of translates to healing or transcending our attachment styles, because everybody, feels like, oh, I'm this type of attachment. I'm anxious attachment.
Oh
I need to find a secure attached partner to complement. And and here's the thing. I really want to talk about this with you, Justin, because for me, what comes up is like the example that comes up all the time is anxiously attached people are like, just an example, right? Constantly needing, like, and by the way, I used to be this all the time. Like, this was me dating. I would meet a guy, think he was awesome, have a great connection. We like, okay, he maybe asked me out on it. Then you're waiting. When are they going to text you? When are they going to ask you out next? I haven't heard from them. It's been this long. Constantly needing communication, reassurance, all of that, right? So that's typical anxious attachment behavior in dating. Oh my God, I wonder if he's into me. It's been 2 days. Oh, he said this on the text. Maybe he means that. Just constant overanalyzing. And so what I hear when I'm on social media and I hear people talking about dating advice in terms of attachment styles, it's all about like, okay, so this is how you should think about this. Like almost like trying to like force people into thinking their way into changing their behavior. Like, oh, here's a way not to get worried about texting and responses. Right. And so I want you to talk about how IFS, rather than thinking our way into behavioral change, how we can actually address the core wound
Yeah.
that is producing this behavior.
And so here is my problem with the thinking and the behavioral strategies is they're always just going to collude with another manager part inside. So it's almost like, okay, we've identified some of your parts that are problematic, and now we're going to collude with these other parts to get those other, the problematic ones to behave better, right? And that's just going to, now it can produce short-term results, but it's ultimately going to create more tension inside because you have parts fighting each other, right? And so what IFS can bring to this is clarity. It is a more sophisticated model because it doesn't have this myth of the monomind, and that it's like, oh, well, you are anxiously, or you have this anxious attachment style, so you somehow need to change your behavior or find a person who's going to fit that, right? And so what IFS does is it says, oh, actually, this anxious attachment style is just a way to talk about this group of parts inside of you. You have this group of parts that are clingy, needy, obsessive. All right. So and very likely everyone who has that group of parts, which I have, have had those parts. And I think most people have parts that at least come near to that. It's, and these parts are like, yeah, I want that love. I need someone to help with these young parts. But we also will probably be able to find avoidant parts as well. Oh, these parts are defensive and withdrawn and very independent. I can do it myself. They're distant, right? And so we have all these parts. And so IFS can come in and say that you are not anxiously attached. Like that doesn't make any sense. That what we instead say, oh, there are some parts here that you can get to know that are clingy, or there's a part here that's obsessed, or there's a part here, that is really needy, and we can find out what does that part actually need, because it thinks that it needs this other person, but when you get to know it, you'll find out that it needs actually a lot more than that. And you can do the same thing with these avoidant parts. And that's what we'll be doing in the workshop, is we're going to be going to the individual parts. We're going to get a lot of clarity about the parts that are actually doing this work inside.
I mean, this kind of brings me to my next question of kind of just let's can you like share an example of how someone might eventually be able to really meet their own emotional needs?
Yeah.
Using IFS.
Well, the first step is clarity. So I was thinking about this before the podcast. I was like, I want to bring in a real life example, but I don't have enough time to contact any of the clients to be like, hey, can I use your specific example? So instead I'm going to use kind of like a composite. Yeah. So there's let's just say we have client, I don't know, we'll just Jane. I don't think we have any clients named Jane. So Jane comes in and is like, all right, I go out on these dates and I don't feel like I can really be my true self, on these days. Like I feel guarded and defensive. I have a wall up. And so Jane has a hard time connecting. And so I don't come into this knowing, I don't know, like I help people gain clarity. So the first thing that happens in this journey is people start to get self-clarity. And so working with Jane over a month or two, we start to see, oh, there are different parts in the system. So we're seeing that there is, this kind of defensive night part, or, there's a defensive part that's always, or there's a part that's always on the lookout, an evaluator part. And then we start to see that there are also parts that like really, really want to connect right behind the defensive ones. There are like these parts that really, really want to connect. So it's not clear that it's avoidant or anxious. So it's not helpful to think in those terms. It's helpful to think of like, what are the actual parts here? There are some defensive avoidant parts. There are also some anxious parts that are, very needy and attached, but we eventually get to find out, some of these manager parts are protecting young parts that are carrying a lot of pain, but are also carrying a lot of needs. And so what we might find for Jane is that driving all of her dating behavior and all of her relationship behavior, because it's Jane has entered into many relationships, 2 4 months, right? And then they just end up crashing. What happens for Jane is that once she finally lets the walls, open up a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, and then she enters into a longer term relationship, the young one comes up, oh my gosh, this is the one, oh my gosh. And then so needy, and then she gets really vulnerable. Something happens and it hurts like hell. And then these defensive parts come right back in, shut it off, get out of here. They cut and then they just destroy the relationship. And this pattern has occurred over and over again. And then as we do the work, we find, oh, there's this young part inside that's driving this behavior. And we might find, oh, that young part, it had in its mind, like it had this wonderful childhood, but her parents got divorced. And the way her parents handled the divorce, it was like really wounding in a very particular way that brought up these defensive parts and these needy parts in such a way that now this pattern has played out over and over and over again. And so we then get to find out, oh my gosh, there's this 7-year-old exile that got really hurt when her parents got divorced. And so I bring this example because divorce is very common.
Fair.
Jane, this composite character, had a good childhood. She was never abused. There was never any big T trauma. But there are these young exile parts that are nevertheless carrying pain around different aspects of her. So so there might be a young part around the divorce. There might be another part in high school who got rejected by her friends, or, and so we get to meet these parts. And when we do, so in IFS, we help any of the parts standing in the way of our true self. We help them gain trust and relax back. And then in IFS, we allow the true self, the real us, to go to the young parts, to listen to them, witness what they had to go through, see the pain that they're carrying, how hard that was. And then when they feel fully understood, and I just want to add one thing here, this is really key, that parts are just like us. They want to be seen and they want to be heard. And it's like ultimately that's what we want. Like, just see me, just see me, just know me, just hear me. And that's what these parts want. So when you get to the young ones who've been protected, that's what they want. And then eventually you're going to help them let go of all the pain that they've been holding. You can bring them up then as a part of your regular system. They're no longer carrying that. And then it's like, I don't want to call it magic, but it's pretty amazing, because then
it's magic. It's magical.
Because then you're going out on dates, you're meeting people, you're entering into relationships, and those triggers are not there. The defensive parts aren't there because there's nothing to protect in that same way. And it's like, oh my God, this is so easy. Like, why was this so hard in the past? And it's almost shocking.
Yeah, I always tell people this work moves the needle. Like, it actually does. And it doesn't take that long to start feeling the change. This is not like, you don't need to be, I mean, I've been doing this work myself for 2.5 years. I started to feel significant changes, and I see it over and over and over with the clients that we work with together, Justin. It's like the light bulbs start going off, and there's just a significant shift in people's system right away. It does not take years of therapy to do this work and to do this healing and to notice the change and see how it starts to ripple out into their lives. I want to bring up, since you talked about Jane, who felt like she couldn't bring her authentic self out. And I think this is another topic I want to just kind of elaborate on a little bit, which is how IFS can help people bring their whole authentic self to dating and relationships. I want to say a little bit about that, and then I'm curious to hear from you. I mean, when I started to do IFS, and this was one of the big reasons why I wanted to bring it so much to my clients, is I, for the first time, experienced self-love. I did not know what the hell that meant. To me, it used to mean, like, when people are like, do you love yourself? I'm like, yeah, like, I have all these friends, and I got into Berkeley, and I met a husband, and I have kids, and I have this life that everything was external. Like, why do I love myself? Because look at all these things that I have. Look at this life I built around me. And I'd be like, I'm funny. Like I make other people laugh. It was like everything was external. It was like money, accomplishments, jobs. Look at all these
This is
people
what the
who
manager
like
parts
me.
can do. This is
Yes.
their job. Yeah.
But when I started to get to know and connect with all of my protector parts, my anxiety, my fear, parts of me that were people pleasing, parts of and the exiled parts, the younger parts, how much love and compassion I felt for them was, I mean, there was a moment during this work initially, I think it was just a couple months in, and I was like, man, I really love the system inside me. I love these parts. And that was when I felt self-love, right?
And you didn't have to work that up. You didn't have to
No,
be like, okay, I need to be compassionate toward my parts, right?
no. It flowed, but there was this like moment, like an epiphany moment where I was like, oh my God, I love these parts of me. And it's loving the kind of the messiest parts of us, of the human
Yes, yes,
experience, is
yes.
where true self-love comes. And what I want to say is that how that translated into my external world is that suddenly I felt so much more open and compassionate and connected to every single person I met. And suddenly I did not get, I was just like, found I'm like, just less and less people annoyed me, triggered me. I wasn't judging others anymore. And so what I've seen, I mean, I was like, oh my God, this creates so much more openness to connection. And so that's the work. I think, Justin, you can speak to this a little bit about working on this with our clients. It's like they show up and this annoys them about the person. This annoys them about the person. This annoys them about the person. And I'm like, oh, I think those are like those are the mirrors of like what you actually probably haven't started to love and embrace within
Oh,
yourself,
that's right.
right?
That's right. Yeah, manager parts or protector parts, seeing in the other person their parts that these protector parts don't like inside you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, oh yeah, and so that's turned inward. Oh, I could go on and talk about these internal critics. I mean, they're really fascinating. But one of the things that I want to say that you brought up is like loving the messy parts. What we find out, and this is a book by the creator of IFS, there are no bad parts. So
Mm-hmm.
many people, when they're in the dating process, it's like, can I cover up the bad parts? Can I exile the bad parts? Can I cut them off? And it's like, oh no, there are no bad parts. And
Yeah.
that's what you really get. That's not an affirmation that you put on your mirror. That's not something you need to tell yourself. It becomes a truth that you get to see when the true self is here. Like from the true self, remember, one of the C words is compassion. And so the way we get more true self here is not by working it up. There's no skills. It's not a discipline. It's going to parts that are in the way, seeing if they would ease back, if they would sit next to you, if they would take a few steps back. And then as you do, and you just focus in on one part, as soon as these other parts step back, it's just true self and there's compassion. And you never have to work it up. It's effortless. And I truly never experienced self-compassion until doing IFS. I did
Yeah, me
years
neither.
practicing mindfulness. I trained in mindfulness based stress reduction. It's a whole thing. And there's a big self-compassion component to it. We did so many self-compassion meditations and it
Mm,
never worked for me. It never did anything. And then I do IFS and it's like, oh, I'm feeling so much compassion for this part. I see how tired it is. I see how hard it's been working. I see
yeah.
how, yeah, like, oh my gosh, defeated it is. And then there's just compassion flowing effortlessly. And I promise you, when you start IFS, you're going to experience that for every single one of your parts eventually.
Yeah. And then, like I said, how that shows up when you are meeting new people. It's just like, I don't know. It's like if you're sitting there on a date, let's say, with someone and you notice that they're a little anxious or whatever it is, right? You're either going, like, when you've already loved and embraced that part of
Oh,
yourself,
oh, yes, yes.
you're not
When you've
off
done
put
that
by
work
it.
with your anxious parts and you have that compassion for them, and then you see
Yeah.
this person across from you and just like, oh my God, I just have compassion for your parts. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And it does. It's like, when I talk to men and women who go on a date and then they sit down and tell me all the ways that they were turned off by the person across from them, it's like, oh gosh, everything inside feels closed, right? Like, I don't know. Let's list off, kind of becomes like a list of things that they don't like, what you don't welcome within yourself,
Yeah.
you are not going to welcome within another, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the welcoming in yourself is not something that you can work up. If it's
Mm-mm.
ever an effort, then it's coming from another part. It's coming from another protector part. And so when that protector part eases back, you will be able to feel that compassion for the part that you are working on. You'll be able to feel it effortlessly. So the way that I think about this journey in
Mm-hmm.
IFS is it begins with self clarity, and that's really going to be a lot of the work we do in the workshop is like gaining self clarity. You, no matter what, you're going to leave the workshop having a lot of clarity about the parts that are anxious, the parts that are avoidant, the parts that are carrying some of these wounds. There's going to be a lot of self clarity, and then once the clarity starts, there's a little bit more space for that true self, and that's where the compassion begins to flow. And now you have compassion for these parts that are clingy, the parts that are distant, the parts that are in pain. And so when the compassion starts to flow, these parts feel it and they begin
Mm-hmm.
to relax more. And as they begin to relax more, then there's even more room for self, for your true self. And then that's the third phase of this work for me, which is self-expression. So it goes self-clarity, self-compassion, and then self-expression. And so when you have that true self flowing, the confidence, the courage, the compassion, the clarity, all that stuff, then you show up on these dates, you show up with other people in your life just ready to connect, ready to flow,
Mm-hmm.
ready to express who you truly are.
Yeah, I think another beautiful, important part of this work and how it shows up in dating for the people that I'm always working with is the protector parts that are super, super, super attached to the outcome of a connection, meaning,
Mm,
is this the one? The ones that are running the program, that is he the one? Is she the one program? When those parts are relaxed back and just connected to your true self and they're not so hypervigilant, not only can you connect more easily, right? But you can enjoy dating. you can you can go and show up on a date
oh my gosh.
and just be like there for the sole purpose of being seen, being heard, and seeing and hearing and giving that gift to another person, because that's the part that's blocking connection, right? So it's just so much easier to date when there is not such a deep, strong, hypervigilant connection to this outcome that you want.
Yeah.
And usually
Yeah.
that outcome is the redeemer.
That's right.
When our clients are forgetting about
Yeah.
what's going to happen, whether there's even going to be a second date, it's it's like self-led connection, and that's when connection actually
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah. And that sounds so wonderful and nice. And I can imagine somebody listening be like, oh, yeah, like the next date I'm going to go on, I just want to be present. I don't want to be connected to the outcome. But I'm going to wager that it's impossible for your parts to hold back because they are on a mission to help those young parts that are in pain. And so this is not like a skill building thing. This isn't a behavior like you need to think about it like X or you need to think about it
Mm-mm.
like Y.
It's
It's like,
not a
no, no, no.
reframe.
Yeah, no, no. There's real work inside that we're going to do. And that as you do that work, you are going to be able to show up present with just here to connect with the other person, because you have done the work to take care of these young parts inside. You have become the one to take care of these parts. You are the one.
I think from a dating perspective, well, in general, right? It removes the pressure of like this role having to be filled by another person. So it removes the pressure. And I think in the dating space, it's like when you're there for all your parts and the pain has also the burdens have been released and the parts are more relaxed, everybody's kind of connected to self, you can show up on the date, the energy is just totally different. There's not this pressure. And as you start, that sort of comes up more, I think, as you start to date a person, they sense when there is pressure, right? For them to be a certain way, fit a certain mold. You can pretend all you want. It comes through.
But not even that. So this course is not just for people who are actively dating. You can be in a relationship and you will get just as much out of this, if not more, because that same dynamic occurs in relationships. So you're now in, a more long-term relationship. You've been seeing somebody for, several months or a year, whatever. The same thing is going to happen when your parts come out and are critical, trying to change the other person, right? When your parts lash out or whatever, that essentially it's a parts fighting parts battle in these long-term relationships. And so then we try to make up and, okay, well, let's just not talk about that issue. Let's avoid that. And let's try to, move on to the next thing. But eventually those parts are going to get triggered again and they're going to fight again. And so if you stay together, then it's just going to be one long string of trying to avoid things that are going to trigger parts, right? But if you do this work, then you can show up. And so, of course, we've already talked about showing up on these dates with more self, but showing up in your relationship with more self is so transforming, because what happens is that as you do the work, your partner doesn't even need to do the work.
No, they don't.
Because what happens is that you will start to show up and you will become less triggered by something that they said or did. And all of a sudden, like, things just start to loosen up. There's just more peace. There's more love. There's more connection. So you don't respond in the same way. So they don't respond in the same way.
Yep.
And it's this beautiful, virtuous cycle. Eventually, what I've seen in working with a wide variety of people who are in committed relationships is that the spouse is like, what is happening to you? Like
well, that's what happened in my marriage.
You're calmer, you're more
this
compassionate.
Is not the Sophy I married.
Yeah.
Michael.
You're more curious, like you're asking questions now of me. Like, and so then the partner, the spouse is like, what is this? And now they begin to do their work. And so, yes, this course is for everybody. It sounds, when I say it, it sounds like it's magic talk, but true self energy transforms everything. It transforms everything.
It sure does. I've seen it. It's transformed my entire life. Entire life.
Mine too.
Every single thing about the way I show up in every aspect of my life.
Yes. And I'll say this, so it has transformed my marriage. Married, I don't remember the exact number of years that I've been married, 23, 24. But our relationship, I can say this just so honestly and easily, it is better than it has ever been by far. It is wonderful. And I have a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old. And I know so many people are like, oh my God, the teenage years, I'm pulling out my hair. It's like, oh my God, they're the best. They're the best. My relationship with my kids,
yes.
It's just amazing. And it's not because I'm a great parent. It's not because I have parenting skills and all this stuff. It's because I've done the inner work to just allow for more self to be here, more curiosity, compassion, calmness, and it just transforms everything. So really, I guess, becoming the one, it can be for literally anyone. It doesn't, even if you're in a long-term committed relationship, if you're not, it doesn't matter. It's going to transform your life.
Yeah, I'm becoming the one in my own marriage, in my own relationship right now. And Yes, I had that exact what Justin just described, the what is happening with Sophie thing totally went down. Michael was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like I was an anxious mess with a lot of post-traumatic anxiety that was living in me, and it just started to like I said, it really moves the needle. I just
It
started
moves the
showing up
needle.
really differently after 20 years, over 20 years of talk therapy that really just helped me get through. But this
Yeah.
was within like a few sessions, it became night and day. And how liberating is it,
Well, so
right?
how
It's
liberating
just
is it to not have this list of skills and like, ooh, what I like the skills and the discipline
yes,
and the da da
the
da at the end,
tools,
the
the
tools,
like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
toolbox,
yes,
right?
yes. It's
So,
not about the tools. Yes,
well, it's also
although we are going to be
liberating.
doing some practices
Yes,
that I could
there
discuss,
are
but I
tools
yeah.
within IFS. But what I want to say is, I think the liberation also comes from, and I'll speak to this in terms of something my husband said to me when he started to do IFS months in. It's that, oh, and this ties in with my love of authentic relating too. I'm just going to say it right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Own your experience,
Big
right?
time. Yeah.
It's like I no longer have to depend on anyone or anything external for me
Oof.
to have a certain type of experience.
Mm.
The fact that I can make that U turn inward about every single thing that I'm upset about it's freedom. It is like you've cut the shackles that you've been chained to, like being, you're like a slave to, oh, this happened to me, and then this didn't go right, and that's it. Like, I don't have to, I mean, of course external circumstances affect us, but how I experience those things that happen to me in life, it's all
Totally.
up to me. It's extremely liberating. And Michael, I will quote my husband after just a few sessions of IFS. He said, Sophie, until I did IFS, and by the way, this is like over 10 years into our marriage, 11 years, he says to me,
Yeah.
up until now, I basically blamed every single shitty thing I felt on you. Like, every time, it was all your
Oh my
fault.
God. I
It
know.
was,
I know.
he
Oh my
just said,
God.
he's like, and I'm
I
like,
forgot that. I did
yeah.
that too. Yeah. No,
Yeah, it's all like I married the wrong person. She trapped me. She's not who she said she was. She was so charming at the beginning. All those
she
things.
fooled me.
She fooled me. But now he told himself he's trapped. He had kids with
Oh my
me. He
gosh.
couldn't
Yeah. Yeah.
leave. Oh, no, this was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
real. And he was like, I just blamed
Yeah.
you for everything. And now
Yes.
I realize none of it's your fault. And I'm like,
It's
sweet, I'm on the same path also. Like, I feel the same
yes,
way.
yes. Oh,
Um,
oh my gosh, I
yeah.
resonate with that so much, and I forgot because it's been a while since that shift happened for me. But
Yeah.
it was such a big epiphany. It was like I blamed everything on Audra, my wife. Like, oh my God, and none of it is hers. None of it is hers.
None.
It's all mine.
Well, yeah, it's all ours. It's like the good news and the bad news all in one.
Yeah,
Nobody's coming to
exactly.
save us. That's it. No
Yes.
one's coming.
But the one who will save us is already here. It's
Yes,
the
it's
one
us.
inside. It's the
Yes,
true self. Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so let's finish up since we've been talking about becoming the one. Justin, what do you hope will be the biggest takeaway for the people who do enroll and
Mm.
participate in becoming the one? What would you say that would be?
Yeah, I talked about these three phases of doing IFS work. It's like it begins with self clarity, and then there's more self compassion, and then there's self expression. And I think that's like a lifelong thing. And for me, I keep going through this cycle: self clarity,
Mm-hmm.
self compassion, self expression. So I think the biggest thing, like I have a part as a former academic. I have a part in me that wants to be really honest and realistic and is like, hey, I don't want to sell any snake oil. I don't want to say like, by the end of these the end of these 2 weeks or whatever, you're going to just be totally healed and you're never going to need to do anything again. So what I feel really confident in is that everyone is going to leave the end of these 2 weeks with a lot of self-clarity. I mean, I think the self-clarity is going to be like off the chart, where you're just gonna be like, hey, I'm still feeling maybe anxious or defensive or these things, but now I see, the parts of me that are here and the parts that I need to work on. So I really feel confident about that. I also feel confident that in that process, there's going to be a lot of self-compassion.
Yeah.
And now self-compassion is something that is it is this endless journey, because you're probably still going to leave the 2 weeks with some parts that you're like, oh, I don't like that part. Oh, that part is kind of scary. I'm not sure what to do with that part. And so it's not going to be like boundless self-compassion. I just want to, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to leave the 2 weeks with way more self-compassion than you have now. And so self-clarity, I feel like I can guarantee that. And then self-compassion, I'm pretty darn sure. And I think there's going to be real opportunities for new self-expression, even though it's not going to be where, you could be as you continue your journey months down the road. But I think in these 2 weeks together, it's going to be transformative in a way that it's going to be like, this is the start. Like, okay, yes, I've now got a map. I now see where I need to go. I see the parts that I need to really work with. And I'm pretty darn sure that's going to happen.
Justin, I couldn't agree more. I think this is the trailhead, right? This is it. And my hope, and I do feel not just hope, like I also feel confident that after this course, there will be so much clarity around this path, like a real trust and belief in the path towards loving and connecting from a conscious and authentic and like sovereign place. Like really being able to know that there is a path towards this. And even just the clarity and the awareness alone is for sure going to change. Just that first discovery of self, like, is it's the game changer right there. It's like the space I noticed from the first moment when I first discovered my anxiety, my first discovery of the part that was anxious. I remember it was like a little minion character in my system.
I totally remember that.
Yes, the minion. So, but I remember that was literally the second or third week we were working together, and we hadn't done any deep healing. It was just the space alone, the awareness of it, the space between this part and myself, my true self, and my true self starting to like witness this part and like accept it, as opposed to being like, I hate being anxious my whole life. I hate that I'm anxious. My anxiety sucks. Always here. How do I numb it? How do I get rid of it? And like just being with this part, immediately it started to relax. Like I just became less anxious. And so I really feel like this is what, and it'll be whatever the parts are, right, for every different person. But I believe that this is possible very quickly. And so that, that's one of the things that I think is going to be a big takeaway for people who join the course.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, Justin, I want to thank you for all of the things.
It's such a joy. Yeah, such a pleasure. I'm so excited for this.
I am too. And thank you for taking the time today. This will be the first of many other conversations about this. I want to let our listeners know, if you are interested in registering for Becoming the One, you can do so on my website, sophy.love/becoming. It's also you can just go to sophy.love, click on what we do, events, it'll be there. And if you do register before August 15th, there is an advanced RSVP promo code for $100 off the course. And that is BTO100, BTO100. We'll put that in the show notes. We'll put that in all the posts. Really, really excited. Justin, I adore you. Thank you.
I adore you. Yes. No, I love working with you. And I feel like this course is just like, this is the natural extension of what we've been doing. I'm so excited.
Yeah, Justin and I are super excited about this, clearly. If anybody hasn't noticed, we're excited. Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today, and looking forward to chatting again soon. The Conscious Matchmaker, sending lots and lots of love, flow, self-energy, ease to everyone out there today. Bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Conscious Matchmaker. Dating and relationships are a vehicle to your healing and growth. If you're on a journey to experience conscious love and authentic connections, remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, I'm Sophy Singer, The Conscious Matchmaker, sending love your way.